Right now, in Illustrator, I'd like to show you an example of a finished value illustration, which is based on a posterized photo. Now, the posterized photo, which has been brought in as a template, and you can see here on this lowest layer, it's a locked layer, which was used to trace over. This photo image has been posterized in Photoshop. So it was the original image was full color. It was brought into Photoshop, converted to grayscale, and then a posterization filter was applied to it with 5 values. So 5 grayscale values, and the grayscale includes black at one end and white at the other. So once that image was posterized with the 5 values, what that does is simplify it for us so that we can create a more graphic illustration using flat areas of color, and those colors are created by filling in closed vector shapes. And a vector shape is a shape made from a path in Illustrator or a similar type of software program. Let's take a look at the way that this was constructed. The template image is the one that was used as a reference to draw over, reference or guide, to draw over, and that was placed first and locked. And the reason it's locked is so that we don't accidentally move it, select it, or move it, or draw on that layer. And then the next layer, let's hide all these, except for the first vector layer. Okay, so the next layer above the template is just choosing a gray value that works well for a background. So for this particular image, this gray worked really well. It's very similar, 70% gray. All right, so I have that labeled as value 4. Again, I'm using 5 values, and you can see that these each value is on its own layer, and those layers are named so that we can understand and not get confused as we're working on this. We need to organize our illustration. The layers are named for the value. The lightest value is value 1, and the darkest value is value 5. So we go in order from light to dark. Value 4, this background color gray, is the second darkest value. It's a 70% gray. If we think of black as a 100% gray, we can think of it as 100%, then this is 70%. And then the next darkest value, value 3, is 50%. And 50% worked well for the face of the model in the photograph. So let me bring this template image back to the top so we can kind of compare it again. So this basically the form of the face is 50% gray. Okay, then above that, value number 2 is a 30% gray, which is even lighter. And that gives us some of the highlights of the face. And on value 1 is a 5% gray, which is practically white. It's not quite white, but it's almost white. And that gives us some of the high points of the face. Then value 5 is on top, and that's the black. So let's take a look on our template image. There's a lot of black in here. There's some part of the background that's black. Most of the hair is black. Underneath the neck, the shadows are black. There's some black in the eyes and inside the mouth and nose. So that has its own layer. All right, so what we want to do is find 5 values that are different enough that our illustration appears to have some dimension to it. It should have some contrast and dimension. So if our gray values are too close to each other, so let's say I use something like 100% gray, which is black, 90%, which is a little bit lighter, 80%, which is a little bit lighter. I mean, we're not going to have a lot of, we're going to have a very dark image, and it's going to be hard to really tell what's going on. So we want to have a wide range of value from light to dark. So when you're picking your 5 values, try to give them some distinct separation. And this is especially important in the mid tones. So I have values, let's see, value 4 and 3. They're different enough, 70% gray and 50% gray are different enough that it's very easy to tell where one starts and where the other one begins. It's very easy to tell them apart. If I had, instead of 50% gray, maybe I had chosen 60% for this, then it's just not enough of a difference. So this is a judgment you're going to have to make for yourself. Every photo is going to be different, so you're going to have to determine the values of gray for yourself. One thing I didn't mention is this details layer, and I say on here 5% to 100%. So there's some details. If I turn that on, there's some areas inside the hair that you can see the face through it. There's some details on the hand. In fact, yeah, so there's some details in the fingers and some various highlights and things like that that really need to go on top. I mean, we're layering these shapes. We're constructing this again with closed paths using the pen tool. We're going to create these with the pen tool. We're going to only fill them with our value, but we're going to make sure that our stroke is at none for these shapes. So if I select the black, for example, you can see there's a black fill on this, but stroke is at none. Now if I select some of these others, if I select value 2, which is 30%, you can see it's a 30% gray fill, and it's a none stroke. If I select value 3, which is 50%, again, if I pull that away, you can see it's a closed path created with the pen tool. It's filled with 50% gray, and the stroke is at none. So that's how I'd like you to proceed with this project and the way I'd like you to construct your illustration.